Welcome back to My Child and I. And on this program, we are looking at television and the internet and its implications when parents use them as babysitters. And joining us in the studio today to look at the issue are some experts. We have Derek Ward, counselor, Veronica Evelyn, sociologist, and Jillian Hassel, our IT expert. Now, there's no story more powerful than a true story. And in this program, we are going to look at a story about Chris Watson, Ruth Hode, and their son, Ted. I think a lot of us are probably going to begin to see ourselves in Ted's story. Ted is 13 years old. He didn't grow up sitting in front of a television for hours. And he and his sisters really started using the computer to communicate with their dad, who travels for his work. But after a while, his parents noticed that something had changed.
What we found, however, with Ted especially going on, was that I guess his time, his focus shifted as he grew, and he just was spending more and more time playing games on the computer. And unless you actually physically removed him from that environment, that's all he wanted to do. He stopped playing his sports. He just wasn't interested in a lot of other things. He's not as physically developed as some boys his age. They're bigger, they're stronger, they're more adept at some of the sports that he's quite happy to play, but their level is more competitive. And so he started to back off from some of that, and as I say, spend more and more time. He began to be the only male in a house of a lot of females when Daddy was traveling. So he wasn't going to do what we were going to do, and so he ended up thing. I mean, I don't want to suggest that that's all he does. Ted has a good balance. He's a really helpful child. He helps with the dogs. He helps with his younger sister. He cooks. He loves to cook, and he often cooks the meals in this family. He helps with laundry and all of those things. But given his choice for recreational time, it's on the computer. And what was concerning to us is it went from games of FIFA games to these killing games, things to do with shooting and dying and guns, and something that we had never seen encouraged or seen manifested in him before.
What made us concerned was the number of hours that he started spending on the computer. Everything was geared towards, I need to spend time on the computer. It wasn't just, I would like to spend time. It started to be a need. And what we tried to do is balance that, try to reduce the time, and he would be okay for a short while, and then he would start to vibrate, literally start to actually get excited about, I really need to be on. He'd start telling me more and more about the games and more trying to engage us in the game on why he needed to be on the game. He started developing friends around the world on the games. So he started joining teams of people, and so they started picking times on which to do campaigns. And so he started watching the clock. I need to be on the computer by 6:20 this afternoon because we are having an invasion. And so it started to be, instead of just general time, it started being specific time. I need to be on the computer at this time. Need. It went from I want to play with it to a need. I need to be on there. They're depending on me to play the game. And that was when we started thinking, what is that?
Chris and Ruth also realized that Ted displayed an unusual aggression. They began to fear that what started as fun was getting out of control, and they needed solutions.
We didn't really find anybody to talk to, and when we would say that, he would literally be vibrating, as Chris said. He'd be just anxious to get, you could see him physically shaking, and he would get very cross, and if you absolutely banned it because you know, whether for punishment that they were banned from computers or something, he'd go in his room and he'd thrash, and it was a very physical manifestation of what he was feeling. And that started to be concerning to us, that we started to say, okay, we need to do something more than just say only 2 hours a day or only an hour a day or not during the week or whatever it was.
One of the challenges is who to approach in Barbados. And we have really not gone too far with it, right? We've talked about it internally. But we've not actually reached out.
We've talked to a couple of guidance counselors. Yes. We're very open in the family about talking to Ted about it. You know, he's aware of our concerns. I think he sort of understands them. But as I said, as you would talk to anybody who's addicted to anything, they can understand what you're saying. That does not mean that they have the capacity to change the behavior. And so that's what we had to start to look at. We've done some research online. We've been chatting with him. Our eventual conclusion, I guess, was that we recognize his need for the screen. So we decided that we would work from a platform where we understood that was him. He liked being on the screen. He's good at electronic things. He's good at the games. And so possibly what we would do is we would try to turn the computer into a more positive element in his life.
But Chris and Ruth can't tackle this on their own. Ted's cooperation is vital. So we asked him, what makes a youngster give up the vast outdoors for virtual reality?
I guess I just find that I wouldn't do it in real life, more for fun, really. Like, I understand that I played a lot now, so I'm trying to cut back, but it's just so addicting, I guess. Yes, I do agree that it is a problem if you play, like, I know this guy that was online all night, all through the day for 24 hours, and that's just crazy. I would never do that. That'd just be stupid, I guess. But yeah, I do agree that sometimes they just don't get what you're actually doing.
We went bowling I think it was his first time, was it, with bowling?
Could be, yeah.
And we went to the bowling alley, and I've bowled before. I've bowled many times back in Canada, so I actually knew how the bowling process works. And I got up and got a spare or strike, and Ted was amazed, and he said, okay, I've been practicing on the Wii, and I've got this whole thing pegged. I know how to do it. I know how to curve the ball. And he went up there, and the ball smashed into the gutter and missed the balls completely. And he stood there, the pins, and he stood there and went, and I could see him doing the motion with the hand. So he gets up and he tries it again, and the same response. And he looked at me and he said, it's not the same, Dad. And he was totally shocked that it couldn't transfer from the computer into reality. And so that was again one of those watershed moments where we went, wow, it's really taken over some part of his life. He's now gotten better at bowling.
Ted shared with us that most of his friends share his passion for online games, not to mention his many virtual friends all over the world.
The average age is about 20-25, and you can hear it in their voice. And usually you'll hear a kid in the background. Like, I was playing on Blackouts and there was like 12 people with kids in the back. I just had to mute them all. It started getting very annoying. And the thing that I could hear, the child was only about 3 and he was playing. And he was like saying, shoot him. And I was like, I don't mind when you get to about 10 and get exposed to that, but 3 is a bit young, I would think, instead of going and playing with your children and taking them to the park or whatever, you're playing this and making them watch it with you. I don't think that would be the best idea. I wouldn't do that when I was taking care of my kids.
For this family, there is a journey ahead, trying to come to terms with a fast-changing technological world, trying to find that healthy balance between the online and the real world. For Chris and Ruth, however, they are less daunted than determined that theirs will be a success story.
Engaging the child in discussions about the games, if they're playing the games. I often ask Ted when I'm driving with him, what's happening with the guild, where are you doing, and just to listen to what he has to say about it, and the ideas that come out, and it becomes real, and he feels like he's accomplished something. So it's not a hidden addiction, it's right out in the open, we're talking about it, so take it realistically so that you can find out what they're doing, what their processes are, and who they're talking to.
You have to be involved in your child's life. You have to know what's going on, and you have to, as a parent, be willing to give the energy that's required to bring your child to adulthood. It's frustrating for us. Like I said, if I drag Ted off the computer, he will come and do things outside. He's happy to play football or cricket outside with us as a family. He's happy to sit and have puzzles and games and all those kinds of things. But we have to make that effort. And I admit I'm guilty of it quite often too. I have a busy life and I don't always make the effort, which is probably why he got to the stage that he got to. And I would like to have thought that I would have taken a more positive initiative earlier. But that sitting around and beating myself up is not going to help. I have to realize this is the situation now. What are we going to do about it?